welcome back to our special of Art House. I'm your host, Karina, and I'm joined here today by our three participants, Karina, Katrina, and Katharina.
Hello, hi y'all, good evening.
First, joining us for the first time, Art House is a social experiment where we have three contestants live together as they learn new creative skills. Now, girls, we'd have a look back on each of your time in the Art House. How about we start with you, Katharina? Your chosen category was visual arts, I believe, and you decided to pursue lino printing?
That's correct, Karina. I've seen a lot of people participate in lino cutting on various social media platforms, so I couldn't resist the opportunity to give it a go myself.
I'm a firm believer in the best way to learn a new skill is to jump right in. So as soon as I'd purchased my tools and watched a few YouTube tutorials on how to get started, I decided to just start my first lino cutting. I expected the lino to be particularly hard to cut, so my first few passes with the tool were insanely deep and jagged. I also struggled to discern just how deep I would have to cut in order to ensure the image came out cleanly. So some of my earlier prints have messy backgrounds where I didn't carve deep enough, so you can still see the ink kind of picking up on those like higher ridges. Despite all this, the first print I made turned out so much better than I could have hoped. I found it immensely soothing and stress relieving during the lino cutting, which seemed to concur with a variety of research by academics such as Jacob and Polly. After my initial success, I decided to experiment with more intricate designs. I struggled with details, as the smaller the overall image, the harder it was to make those details visible. I decided to watch some tutorials to see if there were any techniques I could use. I learned that a hungito is intended to be used to get those sharp corners and details. However, I myself didn't own one. As I didn't have one, I decided to use a craft knife instead, which has a similarly designed blade. I also experimented with space and adapted an activity from one of my uni tutorials where I showed negative space using a leaf. With my final lino cutting, I decided to go all out. I think it turned out really good in the end.
Sounds like you had a wonderful time. Do you think it's something that you'll continue to pursue?
Oh, definitely. I had so much fun doing it, and my mental health was improved so much by it. Plus, there are so many designs I still want to try.
That's lovely to hear. Well, moving on. Karina, last time we were with you, you were practicing an instrument of some kind?
That's right, I was learning to play the harmonica, and phew, was it hard.
I'll admit, I have some prior musical education. I've been playing the piano for about 15 years now and picked up guitar a few years back. Due to this experience, I assumed that the harmonica would come easily to me. I have never been more humbled in my life. Before I could even attempt to start playing any songs, I had to learn how to breathe properly, which sounds much simpler than it actually is. I constantly found that I was inhaling much more air than I was exhaling, meaning I'd eventually fill my lungs to capacity and then be unable to play smoothly. To combat this, I had to coordinate my breathing so that I was also exhaling through my nose at times to release excess air. Once I had the basics down pat, I attempted to learn some simple songs, but was immediately entranced by the possibility of draw bends.
How did you do that?
Despite having a lot of difficulty learning the technique, I was determined, and after following along to various tutorials, I experienced my first breakthrough.
That must have been exciting.
I was rapt and began to really understand how music can improve one's coordination and self-efficacy.
With a little more practice, I was then able to incorporate draw bends into a song and managed to teach myself the choruses for both Country Road and Piano Man.
That sounds wonderfully exciting, Karina. Well, moving on, finally, we have Katrina. You were doing dancing?
Ballroom dancing, to be exact.
Of course, of course. What was your experience like?
Well, where do I even begin?
I quite literally avoid dancing like the plague, so I felt very awkward stepping so far out of my comfort zone, although in the end I had a really good time. I began by attempting a classic box waltz, and watched and followed along to a few tutorials. The footwork alone required a lot of coordination and rhythm sense. I quickly found that it's hard to dance without a partner, so fortunately, a studio employee, aka my mother, stepped in to help me out. This made things far more enjoyable but also difficult, as now I had to worry not only about my own coordination and bodily awareness, but also my partner's. Through practicing, I also found that I was using muscles I normally neglected. For example, the backs of my calves got a real workout due to constantly trying to be on my toes. However, I decided it was time for some professional help, and so sought out the amazing Therese from Penrith Ballroom Dancing. I was blown away by her knowledge and just how technical a waltz really was. I learned that there were specific terms that were used in ballroom dancing, much like there are specific terms for music, and such terms were important so as to direct the dancer. I struggled to remember where to move my feet. But much like is discussed in Smith and Herrickson's article, I found myself getting better and better, learning more and more, with each mistake and failure. I also became more mindful of my body and how it was moving and how it interacted with the space. For example, when I had too much weight on one foot versus the other.
Any final remarks?
I quite enjoyed it in the end, and I may even see myself signing up for future ballroom classes.
I think we can all agree you ladies have done a wonderful job. You've managed to meet graduate standard too, by addressing techniques and concepts unique to your respective art forms. For example, the use of draw bends and hanky-toe cutting techniques. I would also argue you met graduate standard 6 by your investment in YouTube tutorials for professional learning, as well as professional dance lessons. All in all, you girls have done a wonderful job. Alas, that is all we have time for tonight. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Art House. Good night.